Good morning, everyone. Romans chapter 5, verses 3 to 4 is what we're going to look at. Now, there is a gap in David's story that does not get talked about. Samuel anoints him in 1 Samuel chapter 16. The Spirit of God comes on David. He is anointed king of Israel, chosen by God himself, set apart for the throne. But then Saul is still king. For years, David lives with this gap between the promise and the reality. And he goes to the palace as a harp player for an angry king. He kills Goliath and the crowds love him. Saul notices and starts to hate him. Saul throws a spear at him. Saul sends him on missions designed to get him killed. Saul turns the whole kingdom's attention toward hunting one man in the wilderness. The Bible tells us David sleeps in caves. He hides in the hills. He gathers a band of the desperate and the discontented around him. He is an outlaw in the kingdom he has been promised. Now the anointing is real and the promise is real, but none of it looked like it. And I think most of us know some version of this. Not the caves, but the gap. The distance between what you believe God said about you, about your life, and what he put in you, and what your actual life looks like on a regular Monday. That distance is real. And it is not easy to stand there, by the way. And we're not good at waiting, first of all. Waiting feels like losing ground. It feels like something went wrong, or we read the situation incorrectly, or the promise was not as real as we thought. The longer the gap stretches, the more those doubts erupt and press into our life. For the person who is used to making things happen, the waiting is its own kind of wilderness. It's excruciating. You know how to work, you know how to plan and push, and then you hit something that does not yield to any of that. The gap does not close. And the one thing you have always counted on, your ability to move things forward, is no help to you in that moment. See, this is the part of David's story nobody puts on a motivational poster. It is the part of that. It is that part that made David into the king that he became. Saul walked straight into power, and the power took him apart slowly. David waited in the wilderness for years, depending on God when there was nothing else to depend on. And when he finally came to the throne, he had a heart shaped by the waiting. Paul tells us what was happening in those caves. He writes, we can rejoice too when we run into problems and trials. For we know that they help us develop endurance, and endurance develops strengths of character. Romans chapter 5, verse 3 to 4. Now, Paul is not saying problems feel good. He's saying they do something you cannot get any other way. Sufferings do things to us. Character that stands firm under pressure, the kind that actually trusts God when trust costs something. That kind of character does not develop in comfort. It develops while we wait in the cave, in the years when promise is real and nothing looks like that promise. Jesus is the clearest picture of this. 30 years in Nazareth. 30 years in Nazareth before his public ministry began. 40 days in the desert before his first sermon was preached. Gethsemane before the cross. Every significant thing he did was preceded by a season that looked nothing like what it was preparing for. Just go read the Gospels. The anointing did not skip the wilderness. It went straight through it. See, you may be in your own version of wilderness right now, carrying something God put in you that your circumstances have not made room for yet. You are not where you expected to be at this point. At this point, the gap between what you know and what you can see is too wide, and waiting gets harder and harder and more difficult. But David did not rush it. He could not. The Psalms he wrote from those years tell you he was not acting like everything was okay. Psalm 13 opens with, "How long, Lord? How long will you forget me? Will you forget me forever?" See, that's a man sitting in the gap and bringing all of it to the one who put the promise in his life in the first place. the fear, the exhaustion, the confusion, all of it to God. All of it. And that is what the wilderness is for. It is not punishment. It is not evidence that promise was wrong. It is where God builds the things in you that promise will require. But here's what makes the waiting more than just a season to endure. You see, Jesus did not only model wilderness, he went through the deepest wilderness on our behalf. The gap between what we are and what God requires, between the life we have actually lived and the righteousness required to let us stand before a holy and amazing and righteous God, that gap was not closed by our waiting or our enduring or our character. It was closed on the cross. Jesus carried what we could not carry. He stood in the place where the full weight of our failure came due and did not step aside. And on the other side of that, the resurrection, is his word to every person in a cave. I was here. I know what this road cost. I came out of the other side. So when Paul says endurance produces character, he is not describing some self-improvement program. He's describing the shape of a life held by a God who himself endured. The waiting is not wasted, my friends, when you belong to Jesus, who took the worst wilderness in history and walked out of it alive. The anointing is real. The promise is real. And the wilderness is real as well. See, if you're tired, that is allowed. David was tired. He wrote it down. If you are confused about why this is taking place so long, that's allowed too. What is not true is that God has forgotten where you are. He knows the cave. He knows the hills. He knows exactly what the waiting is costing you. And he's not standing at a distance. He's not standing at a distance just watching you endure it. I believe the Bible says he's in it. The same Jesus who sat in Gethsemane and the sweat drops of blood because the burden was that heavy, he is the one walking the wilderness with you. You're not alone in there. Not for a single day of it. God bless you, my friends, and I'll see you soon.